للمتقين مفازا حدائق وأعنابا وكواعب أترابا وكأسا دهاقا لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا جزاء من ربك عطاء حسابا رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما الرحمن لا يملكون منه خطابا رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما الرحمن لا يملكون منه خطابا يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا لا يتكلمون إلا من أذن له الرحمن وقال صوابا ذلك اليوم الحق فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه مآبا إنا أنذرناكم عذابا قريبا يوم ينظر المرء ما قدمت يداه ويقول الكافر يا ليتني كنت ترابا صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
ماشاءالله مهدی جان با قرائت زیبا. والا جناب سید مجتبی را داریم با منقبت زیبایشان از اینکه ناوقت هم آمدن اما بازم چانس میتیم برشان. امیدوار هستم دیگه تکرار نشه.
برای سلامتی خودتان، خانوادهتان، زور و فرج آقای امام زمان صلوات. اللهم صل محمد و آل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. سرسوره هر کلام حق بسم الله استارایش و زیب هر ورق بسم الله است. بخشاینده هر گناه رحمان الرحیم. داننده شرح ما خلق بسم الله. من معترفم که کار من جمله خطاست، نومید نیم که بر بشر سو و خطاست. در عیب که بینی تو به اصلاح بکوش، بر عیب نظر مکن که به عیب خدا. صلوات الله صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. زبان ناطق لال است در ثنای حسین، مگر ثنای حسین را کند خدای حسین. دمی که بر سر دوش نبی نهادی پا، گذشت از سر عرش افسر کلاه حسین. زهی مقام و زهی رفعت و زهی عظمت که گشت بر سر دوش رسول جای حسین. سر ستاره از عرش مجید می گذرد، اگر ستاره نهد سر به خاک پای حسین. بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل علی محمد و آل محمد. گد به پادشاهی کونین سر فرو نکند، گدای خاک نشین در سرای حسین. به بال علم و عمل مرغ دل کند پرواز، مگر دمی بزند بال در هوای حسین. مریض عشق طبیب هزار بیمار است، به شرط آنکه بود عاشق لقای حسین. ز دست ساقی کوثر خورد شراب طهور، به گاه دادن جان طالب ولای حسین. نگین مهر سلیمان و تاج اسکندر، بود به گاه سخا کمترین عطای حسین. کف کفایت اگر برکشد ز جیب کرم، هزار حاتم طایی شود گدای حسین. کف کفایت اگر برکشد ز جیب کرم، هزار حاتم طایی شود گدای حسین. بلوس معصیت هرگز نگشت آلوده، تراز دامنه عصمت کسای حسین. بروز حشر ببینی به دست پیغمبر، لوای حمد و شفاعت بخون بهای حسین. من از کشاکش روز جزا نمی ترسم، چرا که از دلم بر سر صفای حسین. گرفتم آن که گناهم فزون ز باران است، فزون تر از ز باران یم عطای حسین. ز آفتاب قیامت مرا چه خوف و چه بیم، که هست بر سر من سایه لوای حسین. ز خاک کرب و بلا بوی مشک می آید ز طیب نگهت گیسوی مشک سای حسین. خموش بلبل از این ماجرا و دم درکش، تو را چی حد که کنی ذکر کربلای حسین. ببر دست حاجت نزد قاضی الحاجات، بگو به ایچ که یا رب ابتلای حسین. مرا ببخش اگر فاسقم اگر فاجر، به پاک دامنی ذات پارسای حسین. به آبروی گروهی که از سر اخلاص گذشت از سر و جان بر سر وفای حسین. که صلوات محمدی اللهم صل علی محمد جل فرج. به آبروی گروهی که از سر اخلاص گذشت از سر و جان بر سر وفای حسین. که اهل مجلس ما را به مدعا برسان، که اهل مجلس ما را به کربلا برسان. بزرگوار خدایا به مدعای حسین، علل خصوص امین کاظم پریشان حال، که هز بلبل گلزار نینوای حسین. دریاب خستگان غمت را ز حادثات، ای دستگیر شاه و گدا پیر و جوان یا علی مدد. ورد ما این است دایم الاوقات، که به زهرا گل گلزار محمد بلند صلوات. صل علی محمد و آل محمد و عجل.
بر محمد و اهل بیت محمد صلوات. Once again, I announce the program for tonight. After a speech, we will have the cake cutting ceremony. Then we will have the volleyball award ceremony for the teams that they are the winners. And we will have raffle. Then we will have dinner after. Tonight again we have our dear brother Sayyid Ahmad Qazwini. Help me welcome Sayyid Ahmad Qazwini to the member with a loud salawat.
sure there's no echo, please. And some water, please. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. My dear brothers and sisters, we are here to celebrate the birthdays of the three heroes of Karbala. Al-Imam al-Hussein, Al-Imam Zainul Abidin, and Abu al-Fadl Abbas. So please, three loud salawats, and I want a specifically loud salawat from the sister side. Salawat Muhammadi bi'a'la aswatikum, with your loudest of voices. Allahumma. Three salawat. Ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. صل على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you, brother. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to congratulate everyone on these three beautiful birthdays that we're here to celebrate. Two Imams of Ahlul Bayt, Imam al-Hussein, Imam Zainul Abidin, and Abu al-Fadl Abbas, and they are known as the heroes of Karbala. Because all of these three members that we are here to celebrate their birthdays were present in Karbala. Imam Hussein and Imam Zainul Abidin. Imam Hussein, his brother Abu al-Fadl Abbas, were martyred in Karbala, and Imam Zainul Abidin was present. He was sick and he saw the entire musibah that unfolded there. And what's beautiful is that only a few days from now is the birthday of Aliun al-Akbar, the fourth hero of Karbala. So these first 10 days of Sha'abaan are amongst the holiest nights. Not only is Sha'abaan such a beautiful month, it's the month of Rasulullah, it's the month of ibadah, it's the month of worship, it's the month of fasting to prepare for the month of Ramadan. Not only is there the birthday of the Savior of humanity, Sahibul Asri wa Zaman, in a few days, but you have in these first 10 days the birthdays of four heroes of Karbala. And that's why these are sacred, honorable, and blessed days. On the 15th day of Ramadan, 2 or 3 years after the hijrah of Rasulullah, a new dawn had began for Ahlul Bayt. And that was because Al-Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam was born. The glorious birth of Al-Imam al-Hasan marked a new beginning for Ahlul Bayt. Because Al-Imam al-Hasan was the first grandchild to Rasulullah. And the promise of Allah that He had promised the Prophet in the Quran, إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ الْكَوْثَرِ, that we have given you and will continue giving you the great the great Kawthar. Kawthar is all the good things that Allah gave to Rasulullah through Fatima and the lineage of Fatima. So all that abundance of good that Allah promised Rasulullah in Surah Al-Kawthar finally came into fruition when Imam Al-Hasan alayhi salam was born. And the Prophet saw Imam Al-Hasan as his own son. Because you know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had two sons that had died earlier from Khadijah. He had Al-Qasim, and that's why we call him Abu Al-Qasim, right? Abu Al-Qasim. And he had Abdullah. These were two sons, boys of Rasulullah. But both of them died at a young age. They were children when they died. And when both of his children died, some of the enemies of Rasulullah began to gloat at him. The Arabs would gloat at someone who didn't have boys. His boys died, but he has girls. And that's why Al-Wa'il, it's narrated, Al-Wa'il ibn As called Rasulullah Al-Abtar. Abtar is the one whose lineage will not continue. Because your lineage continues through your son, not through your daughter. Your daughter will marry someone, and her children will take the name of that son-in-law, right? So it's not going to be your name that will continue. That's another reason why Arabs preferred boys over girls. Because they saw that their continuation of their lineage is through their boys, not through their daughters. So they gloated at Rasulullah, you are the Abtar. You had Abdullah, you had Qasim, both taken away from you. And then Allah Azza wa Jal reveals the verse, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. We've given you an abundance of greatness and blessings by giving you Fatima alayhi salam and what will come from Fatima. And then the verse ends, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. Your enemy, the one who's attacking you, he is the Abtar, not you. So when the two sons of Rasulullah died, that left a scar, a very deep wound in the heart of Rasulullah. So on the 15th of Ramadan, when the Prophet was told that Fatima delivered a baby boy, the Prophet could not be any happier. Because he knew that his lineage would continue through Imam Al-Hasan and later Imam Al-Hussein. His lineage would continue through Fatima. And this is an exception that only Rasulullah has. Like we said, everyone's lineage through their son. Everyone's offspring through their son. But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam through his daughter Fatima. And this is a hadith that I found narrated in Sunni books. I could not find it in any Shia book. Al-Tabarani narrates it, and what's interesting is the narrator who's narrating it from the Prophet is Umar ibn al-Khattab. Umar ibn al-Khattab in Tabarani says, I heard the Prophet say, كل بني أنثى فإن عصبتهم لأبيهم. The Prophet gives, according to the Sunni tradition that Umar narrates, that every human being, their offspring will continue through their sons. So every person will take the lineage of their father, not their mother. You don't take the last name of your mother, of your father. Every human being is like that. But then the Prophet says, but there's one exception. Who's that exception? Me, Rasulullah. Because my lineage will continue through my daughter Fatima and then through my grandsons Hassan and Hussein. Ma khala wuldi Fatima. The children of Fatima will take after their mother. فَأَنَا أَبُوهُمْ. I'm their father. Their lineage goes back to me. وَأَنَا عُصْبَتُهُمْ. Now someone might say, wait a minute, what about Ali ibn Abi Talib? Where's Ali ibn Abi Talib? Well, I think it's very clear, brothers and sisters. When the Prophet says that I am their father, I think for us, the followers of Ahlul Bayt, we don't even need this hadith to understand that. Why? Because it's enough for us to have Ayat al-Mubahala. Right? What does Ayat al-Mubahala say? فَمَنْ حَاجَّكَ فِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ فَقُلْ تعالوا ندعو أبناءنا وأبناءكم ونساءنا ونساءكم وأنفسنا وأنفسكم. The Prophet, when he was doing the mubahala with the Christians of Najran, Allah told him to go out and have that mubahala, which is kind of like a challenge. Whoever is truthful and false, whoever is telling the truth, whoever is not telling the truth, let Allah Azza wa Jal decide. Bring your boys, your children, your women, and bring yourselves. And he called Ali ibn Abi Talib his own self. So Imam Ali and Rasulullah, they are one. So by saying that Imam Hassan and Hussein, their lineage is after their mother Fatima, it goes back to Rasulullah, that doesn't negate Imam Ali, because Ali and Rasulullah are one in essence. So if their lineage goes back to Ali or Rasulullah, there's no difference, because they are one nafs. One is the Prophet, Nabi, the other is the Wasi. So anyway, so the Prophet could not be any happier when they brought Imam al-Hassan to him, and he carried him as a little child. Now my lineage will continue through Fatima and then Hassan. And then a year later, things got even better. These were the most joyous days probably of Rasulullah's life. When Imam al-Hassan is born in Medina, the atmosphere was filled with joy. But a year later, less than a year later, Fatima once again delivers a second boy. And this time it is Imam al-Hussein. The Prophet attends. He is told Fatima is giving birth. Some narrations tell us that his aunt Safiya, the Prophet's aunt, was the midwife. She was helping Fatima. There's other traditions that tell us it was Asma bint Umays, and possibly it could be both of them. Both of them were there to assist Fatima. So the Prophet rushes. He comes and he waits until Imam al-Hussein is born, and they bring him. He's so excited. Safiya narrates this. You can find this hadith, I believe Shaykh al-Saduq narrates it in one of his books. He narrates this hadith from Safiya herself. Safiya says that when Imam al-Hussein was born, the Prophet, it's as if he heard the cry. You know, when a baby right away when they are born, they cry. It's as if the Prophet heard the cry. He knew that because he was not in the room, he was in the next room. He knew Imam al-Hussein was born. So he says right away, he called me. He called his aunt, Safiya, bring me my son Hussein. Safiya said, Ya Rasulullah, give us a minute. Give us 2 minutes. Let's clean him. Child comes out, needs to be cleaned. Rasulullah told her, Ya Safiya, what are you talking about? Clean Hussein? When Allah Azza wa Jal has purified him and cleaned him. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهِ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. And this is, by the way, before that verse is even revealed, but the Prophet knows about it. He says, Allah has purified Hussein. What do you mean I want to clean him? Bring him to me. Look at how excited Rasulullah was to meet his second son, grandson, Imam al-Hussein. So Safiya says, I took Imam al-Hussein quickly and I gave him to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The first person, even before Imam Ali, the first person to spend those moments with, even before Fatima, right away he's born, the next minute he's in the hands of Rasulullah. As I mentioned, other traditions state that it was Asma bint Umays, and like I said, it could be both of them. There's a hadith that both Shaykh al-Saduq narrate and Shaykh al-Tusi, both of them. They narrate the same hadith, very few differences in the way they narrate it. They narrate the hadith from Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam that we're also celebrating his birthday inshallah these days. So Imam Zainul Abidin says that Asma bint Umays, she told me the story of my father, Imam Hussein's birth, and my uncle, Imam Hassan. Can we please quiet down in the back, please? Brothers, my dear sisters, my dear children there. Please let's quiet down just a bit. So inshallah we can continue in this majlis, and then when you have your inshallah dinner, you can chat all you want. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Al-Imam Zainul Abidin narrates from Asma bint Umays. Asma says, I was there with Fatima when Al-Imam Al-Hassan was born. So the Prophet asked me to bring him. I took Al-Imam Al-Hassan, I gave this child to the Prophet. The Prophet asked Imam Ali, have you given him a name? Imam Ali said, I'm waiting for you, Ya Rasulullah. The Prophet says, I'll wait for Allah. Jibreel comes down. He gives Allah salam, conveys Allah salam to the Prophet. And then he tells him, Ya Rasulullah, Allah orders you to name him after the first son of Harun, because you, to me, it's like Harun to Musa. What's his name? Shubbar. In Arabic, Hassan. He names him Hassan. And on the 7th day, this is when he did the aqiqah, slaughtered the sheep, and he gave it to the poor. She says, I was also there, she tells Imam Zain al-Abidin, when your father Imam Hussein was born. Once again, Rasulullah is eager. He's excited. He's waiting. She says, the Prophet could not be any happier. There was one Hassan, now there's Hussein. She says that Imam al-Hussein is brought to Rasulullah, he takes him. But she says this time, the reaction of Rasulullah was different. Because when he took baby Hussein and he looked at him, Asma tells Imam Zainul Abidin, I saw the Prophet started to cry. And they were not tears of happiness. No, they were tears of sadness. So I was surprised, what's going on? Why is he crying for? It's a newborn baby, he should be happy. Why is he crying? So then he told me, then I heard him say, may Allah curse the ones that kill him. Allahumma al'an qatilahu. And then he told me, oh Asma, do not say anything to Fatima. Don't tell her what you saw, that I'm crying and I cursed. Because Asma knew something's going on. So please don't tell my daughter Fatima what I just told you or what you just saw. Because she's still in the state of just right after birth and she needs her rest. So don't tell her right now. Asma says, on the 7th day, once again Imam al-Hussein is brought to Rasulullah. This time he takes him, he puts him in his lap and he starts to cry again and weep. And he says, Azizun alayya, Aba Abdullah. It is very difficult upon me, O Hussein. It is very difficult. Doesn't say what, it's just it's very difficult. Asma says, I interjected it. Ya Rasulullah, what's going on? This is a time of happiness. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This is a time of bliss and happiness. Why are you crying? She says that the Prophet told me that as soon as Imam al-Hussein was born, Jibreel came down to me and he told me, Ya Muhammad, do you love him? Of course I love him. Oh Muhammad, this grandson of yours will be killed by your own ummah. And he told him the whole story of what happens in Karbala. So now every time I see him, I cannot forget what Jibreel told me. So subhanallah, from day one, Imam al-Hussein's birth, Rasulullah cannot help but cry. And this is documented in authentic Sunni hadiths, by the way. Authentic Sunni hadiths. More than 5 or 10 hadiths. That the Prophet, every time he would see young Imam Hussein, he would cry. There's another hadith that I saw, Al-Mustadrak, Sunni scholar by the name of Al-Hakim, in his book Al-Mustadrak ala Sahihain, narrates a hadith from Ayman, the other wife of the Prophet. She says that one day Rasulullah was sleeping in my house. Imam Hussein was a child, maybe just 1.5, 2, something like that. He was sleeping, and then I see Hussein, he walks in. So I try to prevent Imam Hussein from going to the Prophet because he's sleeping. Let him wake up then. But then she says, I got distracted. All of a sudden, I look, I see Hussein is sitting on the stomach of Rasulullah, and the Prophet is awake. But I felt bad. I'm not supposed to allow that. She says, I went to remove him. I saw the Prophet is weeping, wailing. The hadith uses the word nahib. You see, in Arabic, there is buka and there is nahib. Buka is crying. You could cry silently. You could just shed your tears and it will be called buka. Or you could be screaming out loud. But nahib is a higher level. It's when you're mourning out loud. It's when you're wailing. When you're crying with a loud voice. This is a Sunni scholar narrating from Ayman. Al-Imam al-Hussein is a child. So Ayman says, I asked him, what happened, Ya Rasulullah? Are you okay? He tells her, Jibreel, just now. Again, not just the first day he was born, even later on. He just came down and he reminded me that this child, Hussein, will be killed in the land of Karbala. Subhanallah, it's as if when you see the ahadith, every time the Prophet would see Imam Hussein, Jibreel would come and remind him of Karbala. Then they tell you, why do you remember Hussein so much? When Jibreel, every time almost, the Prophet sees the young Hussein, he comes and he reminds him of the musibah. The musibah that will happen in 60 years from now. And every time the Prophet cries. You think it's an exaggeration? If we cry for Imam Hussein, for 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, 60 days of the Prophet, 60 years before, every time it's Jibreel. Jibreel doesn't do anything by himself, it's Allah sending him. Hussein and tears cannot be separated. This is how great the musibah of Abu Abdullah is. Even when we mention his walada, every hadith I see, I wanted to prepare this lecture, there is something about crying for Hussein. The Prophet cries for Hussein, or Fatima cries for Hussein. Or the Prophet tells one of his wives about the turba of Karbala and how it will become red like blood on the day of Ashura. It's the day of his birthday, but it's completely overshadowed by Ashura. So it's a big deal, brothers and sisters, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thus it was a big deal for Rasulullah himself. So the Prophet saw Al-Imam Al-Hassan and Hussein, his own sons, not just grandchildren. They were his own sons. And subhanallah, there's a tradition where Imam Ali alludes to this in the battle of Al-Jamal. In the battle of Al-Jamal, Imam Ali gives an arrow to his son, Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah. He is a son, but not through Fatima. He tells him, go and kill that camel, because that camel represented the god of the other camp. He goes, he tries to kill the camel, he can't. He comes back, Imam Hassan takes the arrow, he says, give it to me. He takes the arrow, he goes, he comes back, mission accomplished. So when he comes back to Imam Ali telling him that, you know what, khalas, Jamal is taken care of, Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah, the hadith says he felt a little embarrassed, or he felt like he failed while Hassan succeeded. So Imam Ali felt this. So he looked at Muhammad, he told him, Ya Muhammad, don't be upset. Don't be upset. Don't compare yourself to Hassan. Why? They're brothers, right? Brothers always compare themselves. But look at what Imam Ali tells him. He tells him, for you, Muhammad, you are my son, and they're brothers, while Hassan is the son of Rasulullah. فَأَنْتَ ابْنُ عَلِيٍّ وَهُوَ ابْنُ النَّبِيِّ. Don't compare yourself to the son of Rasulullah. Even Imam Ali used to say that. So it wasn't just something symbolic and emotional, that he loved his grandson and it was like his son. No, it was much more than that. It was much more than that. So 2 sons the Prophet had, they died from Khadijah. So Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, they meant everything for Rasulullah. They meant the world for him. But then, after Imam Hussein was born, Allah gave Rasulullah a child. It was his 3rd son. 2 died. A child from his wife whom? Maria al-Qibtiyya. And that was Ibrahim. Ibrahim, if any of you have been to Umrah or Hajj, when you go to the Baqi' and you recite the ziyaras of the Imams of Fatima Zahra, and then there's some other stations, Al-Baneen, one of them is Ibrahim. So when we read the ziyarah of Ibrahim, the son of Rasulullah. And this was about 3 years before the Prophet passed away. So Imam Hassan and Hussein already born. But once again, Allah wanted his lineage to continue through Hassan and Hussein. Ibrahim is almost 2, he gets sick, and Ibrahim dies. And there's a hadith, listen carefully. There's a hadith that Ibn Abbas narrates. He says that one day the Prophet had Ibrahim, his son, on one lap on one side, and Imam Hussein on the other side. And Ibrahim would technically be the uncle of Imam Hussein, right? The Khal, because he's the brother of Fatima Zahra. So he was playing with both of them, with Hussein, with Ibrahim. He says, Jibreel comes down to him. He tells him, Ya Rasulullah, Allah Azza wa Jal has ordered me to convey this message to you. That one of these 2 children will be taken away from you. Have to die. They'll have to be killed for a greater purpose. Yes, when Hussein was born, we told you it was Hussein. But it could be also Ibrahim. You choose, Ya Rasulullah, to give Ibrahim, sacrifice Ibrahim for Allah or sacrifice Hussein. Now, right? Imam Hussein would be killed later on. But now, one of them has to die. Either Ibrahim or Hussein. Which one is it? Ibn Abbas says the Prophet. How could he decide? He looks at Ibrahim and he starts crying. Imagine they tell you, either your son or your grandson. It's very hard to choose. He looks at Imam Hussein, he starts crying. But then he tells Jibreel, Ya Jibreel, I have decided, let Allah take away Ibrahim and keep Hussein for now. Why? He says, because if Ibrahim dies, only I will grieve. Only I will grieve. I'm the father. But if Hussein dies, I will grieve, Fatima will grieve, and Ali will grieve, all 3 of us. So let Allah take Ibrahim, and Allah Azza wa Jal takes Ibrahim. So when Ibrahim is taken away, Rasulullah is even apparently more attached to Imam Hussein. That's why he used to love him so much. For all these reasons we mentioned. He would be on the mimbar, Rasulullah, giving a speech. He sees Imam Hassan walking. Some narrations say Imam Hassan, some narrations Imam Hussein. He trips. The child trips. The Prophet would get off the mimbar. Imagine you just see me come down from the mimbar right now and I just go pick up a child. But tell somebody, no. He would go and carry Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He would prolong his sujood because Imam Hussein is on his back. Even the Sahaba were surprised. This man is obsessed with Hussein. The love that Rasulullah showed to Imam Hussein was unbelievable, brothers and sisters. And he wanted to show everyone how great this child is, Hassan and Hussein. So thus he did this. There's a hadith that Imam al-Hussein himself narrates. He says, when I was young, I went to visit my grandfather. So maybe he's a little older here. Maybe he's about 4 or 5, something like that. He says, I went to visit my grandfather and I see one of his companions by the name of Ubay ibn Ka'b sitting next to Rasulullah. He says, I see Ubay ibn Ka'b sitting. The Prophet looks at me and he tells me, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. The Prophet sends a salam to Imam Hussein. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya Zayn as-samawati wal-ard. He says, peace be on you, O Zayn. Zayn means beauty. The beauty of the skies, the heavens, and the earth. Ubay ibn Ka'ab looks at the Prophet, he says, Ya Rasulullah, this child is the beauty of the skies and the earth? He says, yes. He says, I thought you were the beauty of the sky. You are the adornment. Rasulullah tells him, oh Ubay, you think this is too much for Hussein? No matter how great you imagine Hussein to be in this life, in this dunya, he is much greater in the heavens of Allah Azza wa Jal. No matter how much glory, brothers and sisters, Allah gives Imam Hussein in this dunya, and you can see it when you go to ziyarah. I'm sure almost everyone here, or most of you, have went to ziyarah, and specifically Ziyaratul Arba'een. When you go to Ziyaratul Arba'een, you could really see the glory that Allah has given to Imam al-Hussein and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Everyone, 20 million people just walking miles, miles, miles. People begging you just to eat from their food, just because of their love and passion for Imam Hussein. People sleeping on the streets, anywhere they can find. Poor people, rich people, old, young, everyone that you can imagine. That's the glory of Imam Hussein. No one has what Allah gave Imam Hussein. No individual has 20 million people just walking to him, just to salute his grave. And then salute Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. You see Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, he gave everything for Imam Hussein, and thus he received from the glory of Imam Hussein. Nobody goes to visit Al-Abbas by himself, right? Oh, I'm going to Karbala to visit Al-Abbas. I'm going to visit Hussein and Al-Abbas. The glory that he received was all because of his loyalty to his brother. That's why when you go do the ziyarah Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, Assalamu alayka ayyuha al-akhu al-muwasi li akhi. We begin the ziyarah. Peace be upon you, O loyal brother of Hussein. Loyalty, you can sum up Al-Abbas' life with this one word. His loyalty and altruism to his brother Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And that's why he's called Qamar Bani Hashim. Qamar is what? The moon. You know, a moon doesn't have lights of its own, does it? Does it? When you see the moon glowing, why is it glowing? Because it reflects the light of the sun. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas would take in that light, that nur of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Likewise his father Amir al-Mu'mineen, his brother al-Imam al-Hasan, but specifically al-Imam al-Hussein, and then he would reflect it. So the glory that he has is also from what? From Imam Hussein. So the Prophet tells Ubay, you think Hussein is great in this dunya? And this applies till today. You think Hussein is so great in this dunya? Wait until you see how Allah treats him in the heavens. And then the Prophet gives him just one example. He tells him, for when I went to the heavens, you know the Prophet in the Mi'raj, he went and he saw everything. He saw the seven skies, he saw heaven, he saw hell. He saw the Arsh of Allah, the central command station of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He saw everything. He says, when I went, I saw to the right of the throne of Allah. So just like Allah has a house, the Kaaba, right? He doesn't live in it. It's just symbolic. He has a throne. He doesn't sit on it. He doesn't have a body. But it is the most holiest place in the universe. The throne of Allah. He says, I saw written right next to it the name of Hussein. And he said these specific words, Inna al-Husayna misbahu hudan wa safinatu najat. I saw Allah had written right next to his throne that Hussein is the lantern, the torch of guidance, and the ark, the ship of salvation. Allahu Akbar. This is Allah Azza wa Jal next to his arsh. The Prophet says, this is what I saw with my own eyes. When you go there, you'll see what a big deal Al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam really is. And indeed, brothers and sisters, Al-Imam al-Hussein is amongst the greatest doors of guidance and mercy to Allah Azza wa Jal. Al-Imam al-Hussein is the greatest, or amongst the greatest lanterns of guidance. He's amongst the greatest arcs of salvation towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where would we be without Imam Hussein? Let me just give you this snippet. I could give lectures on why Imam Hussein is that beacon of light. But just I want you to realize something that we, everyone here, followers of Ahlul Bayt, are blessed with because of Imam al-Hussein. And we can all see it with our own eyes, and that's through what's happening right now in the Middle East. Who's following the news, what's happening in Gaza? You see that the Zionists are butchering children and innocent people like insects. Like, not even like animals. Even animals aren't killed that way. Probably insects. They're doing it publicly, brazenly, without any shame, without even hiding it. And there is 1.8 billion Muslims surrounding that country, small country of Israel. How many countries in the world are Muslim? Anyone know? How many Muslim countries? No idea. 100? Come on. No. It's not more than 100. No one knows how many Muslim countries? Could have Googled it by now. No. I'm giving you time to Google it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Khalas, you give up? What is it? Close. What is it? So it's about 50 something, right? Depending on the Muslim majority countries. There are almost 50 Muslim countries in the world right now. And every single one of those Muslim countries, with their armies, with their ammunition, with their military, they are silent, and they cannot move anything, except the only Muslims that are actually doing something are the ones that follow Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Tell me that's not true. List all the Muslim countries. Who's resisting the massacre against Palestinians who aren't Shia? They're not Shia, right? Who's resisting? Yeah, there might be some chance, but who's actually doing something? It's only the Shia of Ahlul Bayt. It's only what? You know the different groups, right? In Iran, in Lebanon, in Yemen. What's the commonality between those that are resisting this oppression? They are all inspired by Karbala and by Imam Hussein. That's the only difference, right? Or else what's the difference between them and all the other Muslims? Everybody's heart is broken. But the follower of Hussein, because that message of Karbala is completely settled in their heart, they cannot, listen, they cannot tolerate oppression. Even if it is not someone from my school of thought. It's because Imam al-Hussein, he taught us this. And wallah, this should make you so proud. Leave all of the discussions aside and the ahadith. Just look at what's happening today. Why has the Muslim world been paralyzed? They can't even throw a rock at the Zionists. And the only ones that are helping the Palestinians are the followers of Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because we have Imam al-Hussein to be enlightened by. Because we have the story of Karbala. Because every year we remember Imam Hussein Ashura. Unfortunately, this ni'mah blessing, a lot of Muslims are denied. Muharram Ashura comes and they don't even hear about Imam Hussein. And when you become a lover and follower of Imam Hussein, and you are inspired by the heroic acts of Imam al-Hussein and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas in Karbala, then you can never stay silent. When you're inspired by Imam Zainul Abidin and what he said in front of Yazid, that teaches us to not fear, to always speak against oppression. That's exactly what Imam al-Hussein said in his famous lines. He said, ألا وإن الدعي ابن الدعي قد ركز بين اثنتين بين السلة والذلة. He says, this illegitimate individual, his birth is illegitimate. Ibn Ziyad has forced me to choose one of two things. Humiliation, which means to submit, which the majority of the Muslim world has accepted humiliation today, because they're not even trying to stop the aggression against these poor Palestinians, they have accepted al-dhul, al-dhillah. The only ones that have said no to dhillah, we will not accept, even if there are repercussions, are the followers of Imam Hussein. Why? Because they follow after Hussein. Because Imam Hussein said, he gave me two options: humiliation, yani I give bay'ah to Yazid, or as-silla, I unleash my sword and fight. And then he said, وَهَيْهَاتْ مِنَّ الذِّلَّةِ. Hayhat means never over my dead body. That's what hayhat means. Minna dhillah. I will accept and succumb to dhillah, humiliation. يَأْبَى اللَّهُ لَنَا ذَلِكَ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Allah would never accept that for me, the Prophet, the believers. And that's why Imam al-Hussein, he stood and he fought till the last second. He could have just accepted. He could have made a peace treaty, a deal with them, with Yazid. Just like some Muslims that they're making those treaties and peace deals with the Zionists. But Imam al-Hussein teaches us to never accept humiliation with the zalim. And this is something you can see with your own eyes. So we have to always, brothers and sisters, thank Allah Azza wa Jal. This is one of the biggest ni'am of Allah, that He showed us the nur of Imam Hussein. That we learned who Imam Hussein was. That we are familiar with the heroic acts of Imam al-Hussein and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas and Ali al-Akbar and all of his companions on the day of Ashura. Wallahi, this is fakhr. This is honor beyond any honor. Honor that actually shows you it has results on the ground. That's the difference between an Islam with Hussein and Islam without Hussein. Islam without Hussein becomes, unfortunately, Islam of Yazid and Muawiyah. And an Islam with Hussein becomes an Islam of honor, respect and dignity. So we thank Allah Azza wa Jal for guiding us to Ahlul Bayt, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'll mention the story and I'll end inshaAllah. One of the beautiful stories that have been narrated about Imam al-Hussein is a story that Ibn Shahr Ashub narrates in his book Manaqib al-Abi Talib. Ibn Shahr Ashub was a scholar that lived about 8-9 centuries ago. In his book where he mentions the virtues of the family of Abu Talib, he mentions this hadith that an Arabi one day came to the city of Medina. And he asked the people, and this we could assume was in the last years of Imam Hussein's life. Imam al-Hassan had passed away. He asked some people, who is the kindest person here, the most generous? Right? Who is the kindest person here? Imagine someone comes to the city of Albany and they were to ask, who's the kindest person in Albany, right? What would people say? They would say, brother, I can't mention the name, right? You'll get an answer. Maybe you'll get two answers. But then you'll find that there's one name that's probably repeated more than others. So the Arabi asks, who's the most generous person in Medina? They tell him it is Al-Hussein ibn Ali. No one more generous than him. So he asks, where is he? They tell him, he's in such a place. He goes to the masjid of Rasulullah, it appears, and the Imam is praying. The Imam al-Hussein is praying. It's a beautiful hadith. And he just stood in front of Imam al-Hussein and he recited beautiful lines of poetry. You know, that was a part of Arabic culture, that sometimes when you want to ask for something and you're kind of embarrassed, then do it through poetry. It's kind of like you're preserving your dignity. So he stood in front of Imam al-Hussein and he read these beautiful lines. Listen, I'll read them for you. He said this: لم يخب الآن من رجاك ومن حرك من دون بابك الحلقة أنت جواد وأنت معتمد أبوك قد كان قاتل الفسقاء لولا الذي كان من أوائلكم كانت علينا الجحيم منطبقا. Yeah, he tells Imam al-Hussein in beautiful lines of poetry. He tells him, the one that comes to you, he's never even met him, but because of what he's heard of the reputation of this man, the grandson of Rasulullah, he says, I know based on what I've heard that the one that comes to you and knocks your door and asks you will never be disappointed. Allahu Akbar. This is a man that doesn't know Hussein, and he talks to him in this way, and he has this much ma'rifah in Hussein. That shows us, brothers and sisters, that we have so much to look forward to in Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He's so generous. He says, the one that comes to your door, Abu Abdullah, would never go back disappointed. He says, Anta jawadun wa anta mu'tamad. You are the generous one. You are the one that everyone could rely on. You are the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why wouldn't you be? The apple does not fall far from the tree. And then he says, if it wasn't for your parents, for the individuals that came before you, meaning Rasulullah, meaning Amir al-Mu'mineen Fatima, كانت علينا الجحيم منطبقا. Then we would have all been misguided. We'd have never found the nur of Iman. It was because of your family, your predecessors, Rasulullah and Imam Ali. But you see, what's beautiful is, he didn't even ask the Imam for money. But it's obvious, right? It's obvious. And what does this guy want? He's come, he's praising Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, and he's just lavishing him. The Imam finishes, he says salam to him, and then he goes back to Qambar. He tells him, oh Qambar, remember there was a certain amount that I had received? He says, yes, it's still there. He says, go bring it. He went, he brought it. It was 4,000 dinars. 4,000 dinars, brothers and sisters. I don't know how much it would be today, but it would definitely be more than $50,000. Imam al-Hussein had received a gift or something from someone, and it was all he had. He took all of it. So you and I, we take half and we give the other half, right? Or we take 3/4 and we give the other 1/4, or we would take 3,990 dirhams and we'd give 10, and then we'd feel so proud. I gave 10 dinar or dirhams. Now al-Hussein took all of it. This is Ahlul Bayt. They give everything that they have for Allah Azza wa Jal. That's why Allah gives them back everything. So he takes the 4,000 and he doesn't give it to the Arabi. Why? Because the Arabi never asked directly. He indicated, يعني, I need, but I don't want to directly ask. So the Imam, they say he went into the house, he opened the door just a bit, and he just took his hand out of the door. And he told them, take this, O Arabi, so that I don't even see you when you're taking it. That's how they used to preserve the dignity. You know, sometimes you give $1 to a faqir and you're just staring at him. Yalla. Right? The Imam doesn't even want to look at him. Yani khalas. Your dignity has been preserved. And then the Imam, he replied with lines of poetry himself. So beautiful, I'll read them to you. The Imam then told him this. خذها فإني إليك معتذرون واعلم بأني عليك ذو شفقة. The Imam tells him, take it, but I'm sorry. Have you ever heard of a person giving that much money to someone else, sadaqah, for free? And then they are the ones that are apologizing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I apologize. فَإِنِّي إِلَيْكَ مُعْتَذِرٌ. And I feel so bad because of your condition. لو كان في سيرنا الغداة عصا أمست سمانا عليك مندفقا لكن ريب الزمان ذو غير والكف مني قليلة نفقا. الله أكبر. Allahu Akbar. This deserves 20 salawats, but let me first translate it. He tells him, take this small amount and forgive me because it's not much. For if we were in power, yani if we had more authority, then I would give you so much such that it would rain upon you. It would rain upon you. Naam? It would rain upon you with dinars and dirhams. But he tells him, but unfortunately, but other people, they are in power, and this is the only thing I can give you. When he gives that man the money, the man, you know what happens to him? He starts crying and crying and crying. Imam al-Hussein tells him, are you crying because you thought I would give you more? He says, La wallah, I am crying because I cannot imagine how this kind and generous hand one day will be laid in the grave. I cannot imagine that this hand one day will be 6 feet under. Such a hand deserves to be living for eternity, deserves to be immortal. And Imam al-Hussein is immortal in his ruh, his spirit, the love that he enjoys from everybody. And the Arabi took the money and he left. Brothers and sisters, Imam al-Hussein is one of the greatest doors to Allah, to Allah's mercy and generosity. Any haja you have, and I know every single one of you has a haja. Anyone who is sick, anyone who has any type of problem in their lives and they're struggling, remember that Imam al-Hussein is one of the greatest doors to Allah Azza wa Jal. Imam Zainul Abidin is one of the greatest doors to Allah. And likewise Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, they call him Qadi al-Hajat, right? Qadi al-Hajat, he is the one through the power of Allah that gives you your haja when you ask him. So I know we all have hawa'ij. Let's end this majlis, brothers and sisters, by imploring their generosity, by appealing to these 3 shining stars of Ahlul Bayt, the heroes of Karbala. Let's read together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. يا سيدنا ومولانا يا أبا عبد الله الحسين يا شهيد كربلاء يا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. Everyone now with your loudest voices. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا وجيها عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا سيدنا ومولانا يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. Everyone. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا. يا وجيها اشفع لنا عند الله. Ya Allah, we ask you for your love of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, for your love of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas and Imam Zainul Abidin. We ask you to forgive all our sins, Ya Allah. Accept our a'mal. Grant everyone here in this majlis their hajat. Anyone that is sick, grant them full shifa and recovery. Grant us the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein in this life, the ziyarah of his brother Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, the ziyarah of Imam Zainul Abidin and all the other members of Ahlul Bayt. Grant us the shafa'ah of their grandfather Rasulullah in the next life, Ya Allah. Hasten the reappearance of our Mawla Sahibul Asri wal Zaman. Make us amongst his companions, his sincere companions and supporters and shuhada. And let us end, O mu'mineen and mu'minat, by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha for all the believers that have passed away, for all the shuhada that have fallen in the last few months in Gaza, in Palestine, in Lebanon, and all the other places, all the oppressed that have been killed, and all the marhumeen that have died. Let us recite Surah Al-Fatiha for them after a loud salawat for Muhammadin al Muhammad. Salli ala Ahmad ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Malik yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alayhim ghayril maghdubi 'alayhim waladdallin.
Thank you, Sheikh Sayyid Muhammad Qazwini, for the wonderful speech. Now we will have our cake cutting program. I request all the elders to come over and help Sheikh Sayyid Ahmad Qazwini to cut the cake. از بزرگا تقاضا میکنیم که به خاطر قطع کردن کیک تشریف بیارن. فقط به خاطر احترام بشی بچی گرفت
پیرمردا بیان با الان هیچ کس نمیاد، هر کی میاد یعنی پیره. شما بگو جوانا بیاد، پیرمردا همشون بیاد.
البته جوانان و نوجوان هر کس میتونن بیان تشریف بیارن. Dr. Javed, please.